Now you should be at the tip of Cowboy Cove, at the junction of Los Vaqueros Trail and the Adobe Trail, which leads to Round Valley Regional Preserve.
The Adobe Trail was named for the so-called Suñol adobe that was constructed in about 1852 by Lorenzo and Juan Suñol, who were Spanish. Like everybody around there, they were into the range cattle business. Range cattle were primarily valued for their hides, for the tallow from reducing the carcasses. Range cattle were not too valuable for meat. There wasn't too much meat on them. And furthermore, you couldn't preserve the meat even if you got it. And interestingly enough, they started constructing that adobe before they had any legal right to the land. And this is very typical of this era. People would go out, they would snag a piece of land that nobody else was actually defending actively with a shotgun. They would make as much money on raising cattle on that land as they could, and if they got run off, well, you know, then they've made their money, and what does it matter too much? One of the interesting stories attached to the Suñol adobe relates to Juan Suñol's wife, Maria. It was a kind of a sad case, really. They lived together essentially as a common law man and wife for about 5 years, starting in about 1854. And her expectation was she was his wife, and that when they were going to move on back to Spain perhaps, she would go with him. Well, Juan turned out to be a bit of a, not what one would hope he would be. The story goes that she packed her bags and was ready to move on with Juan back to Spain, and he just skipped. So eventually she ended up suing Juan and his brother Lorenzo in court for her services as a housekeeper and servant and so on for the 5 years she'd lived with them. It wasn't a happy relationship, but one good thing about it was that all the legal records that related to her case are absolutely invaluable to reconstruct what went on at the Suñol adobe, who lived there, what they were up to. Often these official records tend to be quite man-dominated, in that the men tended to have their names on the leases, their names on the various legal documents. So just to get a view of life there from her perspective, even though it wasn't very happy, is really very welcome. If you walk along the Adobe Trail, that's the story that should come to your mind. That's the story that comes to my mind anyway.
Now continue on the Los Vaqueros Trail until it becomes the Peninsula Trail. We'll follow that long expanse of shoreline and grassland as you listen to segment 7.